Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for this week's episode of So Chatty, episode 49. And today we thought, oh, yeah, and the date is, what is the date? February the 25th, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep,
2020, 2022, yeah.
Actually, there was a baby born. They were boasting it, and I finally realized what it was. It was born on 2/22, February 22nd. 2/22, second month. 22,
22, something. Anyways, we digress. So today's topic, now that well, a lot of people are claiming spring is just around the corner. I think that's wishful thinking, at least in our environment. But I think they're now thinking about retreats and classes and things like that. And because certain here in our area, they are starting to lift slightly the restrictions on COVID and that kind of thing. Our local quilt store is advertising classes starting again, and not just them. There's other stores too that are advertising
in-person classes.
In-person classes, yes, opposed to like
Zoom.
Impersonal classes.
Out-person,
whatever. So anyways, we thought we would talk a little bit about what we think from our point of view makes a good class. Now, we have both taken lots of classes. I've taken a lot of in-person classes. Walter has been doing more online classes for his garment sewing and things like that.
But I have taken a few in-person classes.
Yeah, you've taken some of those as well. But we thought we would talk about some of the things we've run into, and if we had our druthers, how we would conduct a class. Now, I have to say I am super critical because I was a classroom teacher. So I know of that of which I speak. So they're this thing.
And I guess I'm sort of critical too, because I'm there for a purpose when I go to a class, and if that purpose isn't met, then I can be critical of the class too.
But having said that, we're not going to sit here and cut up classes. I think classes are a good thing, especially if you're a beginner quilter, but they're good for advanced people too, and we'll talk about that. But we thought we'd go through the things that make what we feel is a good class. And it's so much more than just the fact that you're going to learn something new. It's how it's presented, it's the environment it's presented in, and all kinds of other factors as well. So we sort of did some brainstorming and looked at it from our points of view, and we're going to explain those now. So the first thing I want to talk about, really, before you even get into the class, is what I would call advanced planning on the part of the shop or the organization conducting the class. What they need to do or should do to make your experience more positive. And the first thing is there should be lots of time before the actual class begins so that you have a chance to select the class, to sign up for the class, and usually pay for the class. Most classes need to be paid for in advance because, well, that's obvious. And I agree with that because I know from my personal experience, if you don't make people put the money where their mouth is, at the last minute, something different comes up. Now, there's all kinds of reasons. People have a medical emergency, a family emergency, life gets in the way, and that kind of thing. But there are other people who basically leave it to the last minute to make the final decision, to put their money down, to say they're coming to the class. And that's unfair to the store, and that's unfair to other people who may want to take the class and, they haven't paid for it yet.
Not only that, a lot of the stores, if they don't get enough interest for a particular class, they will cancel the class because there isn't enough interest. So
because one thing we always have to keep in mind, stores are not running the classes totally for the benefit of their customers. It's not a free service. It is part of their business. It's how they bring in revenue for that. So they are looking at this, although they won't tell you that up front, and why should they? But it's obvious. It's a business. They are depending on people paying for it. And if they get one person signed up for a class or two, it doesn't pay them to run the class because they have to pay the instructor usually, or they're using a certain space in their store that could be used for something else that could bring in some revenue. So really, as long as there's enough time, and that involves advertising. I hate places, and I have seen this both online and in physical classes, where they've suddenly announced they're having a class and it starts in 2 days. Or the way they have announced it hasn't gotten to you. Now, there's a whole variety of reasons why it didn't get to you. Maybe you're not on their mailing list and that's who they send it out to first. Maybe you're not checking their website on a regular basis. But there needs to be some mechanism set up at least that gives you a chance in advance to pick a class. No last minute kind of things with that.
Not only that, the classes should be advertised in such a way that it gives you a description of the class,
A clear indication of what to expect.
and a picture of what the end project should be.
Yes. You do need a picture for that. And you do need to have everything laid out for you. Now, I'm not talking about saying specifically, you will need this, this, and this in the class, but they need to have a description that is detailed enough that you know exactly what is involved in this and what you may need to bring with you to the class too, so you can make a sound judgment on it. For example, if you see a Lone Star class making a big Lone Star, well, I would want to know, does this involve Y seams, or is this straight strip piecing and cutting things on an angle? That's important, because maybe I don't know how to do Y seams, or maybe I want to learn how to do Y seams. So I want to know that if this is a technique involved in this class, that I'm going to be taught that technique. It's not going to be assumed I know how to do it.
They should also identify what level of sewer that is going to be taking or should be taking the class, whether it's a class that's good for beginners or for intermediate sewers or for advanced sewers.
And having said that, they need to explain what those terms mean. When they say confident beginner, I have seen that on classes before. Well, what's a confident beginner? Does that mean you've done a quilt already before and this is your second quilt? Does this mean you know how to do, a 1/4 inch seam allowance if it's in the terms of a quilt? You understand some basic terminology that they may use in it. Like, they need to explain, because what happens is, and I've seen this when I've gone to classes, there's also already somebody in a class which is an advanced class who's really only a beginner, and they are completely lost. And that's a problem, not just for that person, but it's a problem for the teacher, the instructor. It's a problem for the other people in the class, because what happens is most teachers will gravitate towards teaching to the lowest dimension, meaning to the person who needs the most help. So then you get advanced ones in there who may get bored, depending on how the class is structured. So I think it's very important that it says more than just beginner. It has somewhere in a description, somewhere on the website or whatever, has a link to it that says, this is what a beginner means, blah, 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 blah. This is the characteristics of an advanced quilter or sewer, blah, blah, blah. So people can fit themselves into the slot a little bit better. Now, the other thing you're going to want to know is, or I like to know is, how many people will this class hold? What's the minimum? What's the maximum? I'm more interested in the maximum, because, and we're going to talk about physical environment in a moment, but some stores have huge classroom areas and they can accommodate comfortably 20 plus people. Some have a very small classroom and you get 8 people in it and you're sitting on each other's lap. And if you aren't in a comfortable setting, if there's too many people in the class, you might not want to take the class because of the physical setting. Also, if you're a beginner or something like that, you may feel intimidated if the class has a lot of people in it as well. So I think it's important that they tell you how many people they can accommodate. It also gives you an indication of how soon you need to sign up. If it's a class that can only handle 10 people and they're advertising this class to begin at the end of the month, but they've started advertising it, 3 weeks in advance of it, you may want to get in there really quick if you really want to take
Well,
that class.
actually, I think that would be a general rule of thumb anyway. If you want to take a class, you see a class you like, you should really sign up as soon as you can.
Well, yeah, those who snooze lose as well. And that goes back to what we just said a moment ago about not leaving it to the last minute. Because, you know, if you really want the class, get in there, get your name on the list, and get your money put down for it to guarantee it. Now, Walter already mentioned this, the ability to see samples, whether they're pictures online or hanging in a store. Actually, both would be good because you may not be able to get into the store that readily. So you need to see the sample. I have taken some classes sight unseen. There was a description, but they didn't have a sample yet completely finished at the time of publication. And that leaves me like a little doubtful. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what it looks like too, so I can start picking out my fabrics for it. Because, you know, their sample may not be in the color scheme that I want, and usually it's not. So, you know, what about in garment sewing?
Garment sewing's maybe a little different in that we usually pick a pattern, like a commercial pattern to sew with, right? So the commercial pattern usually has a picture of the garment first, but we're a little bit more flexible because there are things that you can do to alter the garment slightly. Like if the picture has a picture has a pocket on the shirt, and you don't want a pocket on the shirt, you can just leave it off, type of thing. So yeah, you have a general idea of the garment that you're sewing, and then also on the pattern it would show you what the sizes are if you're able to fit into the type of thing.
Yeah, they don't. Now, if you're taking a class online for quilting, they will tell you what pattern they're going to use. And it's either the onus is on you to go and buy the pattern in advance of the class from wherever, or it may be supplied by the whoever's running the class with a link or something like that. But sometimes I've been to classes where I did not see the pattern in advance. It was just given a description. That was because they didn't have the pattern yet at the time of the class coming in. So I think it's very important that you have access to the pattern, unless it's a mystery quilt. And it's one reason I don't like mystery quilts, because I don't like mysteries.
Just to add something with garments, a lot of times when I've bought online patterns, the person that's selling the pattern or the company that's selling the pattern often have pictures of live models wearing a sample of the garment, so it gives you a better idea of what it looks like on a person.
Yeah, well, I would say that if either a garment class or quilting class, if you can't see what the final product is going to look like, I would be loath to sign up for the class, because it suggests to me there's a problem in organization, a problem in availability, whatever. You know, and that doesn't give me a good feeling. I'm putting money down for this. I expect to have these things readily available.
Now, what else they should have is not necessarily exactly when you sign up, but within a week or so of when the class starts, they should be able to provide you with a supply list of the items that you require to bring with you when you attend the class. In fact, actually, I prefer if that's available right at the time you can sign up for the class.
Well, I was going to say it should be available as soon as you sign up for the class. I have been to classes where the information did not come out until just a couple of days before the class.
And it's not necessarily all that convenient for everybody to scramble around and get all the items for the class.
No. So, you know, and if you do get the class materials and supplies in advance, don't sit on it till the last minute, because there may be certain supplies in that list that are specific to that project, like a special ruler or something else, or special fabric or whatever that you need. And then you do go in the day before in the store, or a couple of hours. I've seen this happen on more than one occasion. where one of the people taking the class started at 1, they've come in at about noon, at 12 o'clock, and expected to get all of their stuff right then and there, and then sit down at the class, and the store has been out.
Well, no, not only that. I've seen. I have taken a class where there were a few items on the list that the store that it's being held in doesn't have. You have to get it supplied from an outside supplier.
Yeah. So again, this all goes back to, if you're going to take a class, make the commitment. Don't leave it to the last minute. Plan ahead for it, so you don't get caught without one of the supplies you need with it. Again, this is also an onus on the store, that if they want you to have certain supplies in the whole bet, they should make sure that they have supplies enough to handle the potential number of people that are going to take the class.
Not only that, they should also identify on their list that if it's a supply they don't carry, that you would have to get it elsewhere.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say something in the negative about that. If they don't have or cannot get a product that is needed, definitely needed for a class, they shouldn't be offering the class.
Yeah, you're true.
Because what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point with that? Okay, so and you should check out too, since you are going to be probably in most cases paying in advance for this, check out the cancellation policy. What the store says. Do they give, if you cancel, is there a refund of some sort, or a store credit for that, or to put towards a future class? And what's the timeline? Again, I said if they can't get somebody at the last minute because you canceled out for the last minute for whatever reason, shit happens, right, in your life. But if you suddenly the day before you have to cancel out of the class for whatever reason, well, I don't think you should expect to get your money back, because they may not be able to get somebody to take that spot. They have an empty spot. They've set it all up. They're paying the instructor for that number of people or whatever with it. It's unfair to the store that has set it up. Now, some stores may say, okay, you will get a refund if we can get someone to take your spot. But if we can't, then you're not getting your money back with it. And I think that's fair for them to do that. That may seem harsh to some people, but I think it's very fair. Because as I said before, it is a business. And it's not fair to them, no matter what your reason is. I don't care if your 4th grandchild is being born that day, and your daughter-in-law's just gone into labor. I don't care if your car broke down. I don't care if you are feeling ill. Shit happens. So, check out the cancellation policy if you're one of those people that shit happens to a lot. Okay. All right. So anything else you want to say about advanced planning and that kind of stuff?
Nope, not really.
I guess the bottom line here, though, too, the onus on the person taking the class is don't leave everything to the last minute, is what we've been saying. Because a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on the part of the store. Okay, let's talk about the store, the location, the timing of a class. So when will it be held and how long? Check your calendar. Now, it goes without saying that stores and online classes are going to have a date. But do they have a series of dates?
Yeah, they should have I would think they should have a start date and an end date, and specific dates that they're holding the class on, so that those are the dates that you'll be going. Because occasionally they'll say like it's weekly on Wednesday, but they may actually have a Wednesday that they have to skip for some reason.
Or for example, it's on a Monday, and it's every Monday for the next 6 weeks, but in the middle of that there's a long weekend. So are they having it on that Monday, or what? Or just you as a customer, you might be planning it's the long weekend in May or something, and the Monday you might be planning to go away on that long weekend. So it's to the advantage of the store to make sure that they list all of their dates and then their time. Timing is important, okay? Are you a morning person or an afternoon person? Do you like taking a class in the morning, or do you like to take it in the later afternoon? Well, they should clearly indicate what their class times are. Um, they should also indicate, or you should be able to see, if they offer, sometimes stores will offer the same class or two classes on one day, but one will be in the morning, one will be in the afternoon. How much time is there between that first class and the second class? For example, first class starts at 9:30, ends at 12. Second class starts at 12 and ends at 3. Wait, there's turnaround time. Now, most places would figure that out and give at least a half an hour between those classes, or an hour. I would say they should at least have an hour between them, because there are always the slackers. And I have gone to many classes where this situation has happened. And even when they've given, and they always do, where I go for classes, give lots of time for the first group to clear out, and so the next group can get in there and set up for the class. There's always the stragglers who sit there and talk, and they haven't cleaned up their sewing machine or their supplies. And you're standing there, and it becomes a traffic jam. Other people are trying to get in. You're trying to get your place set up and everything ready to go so the instructor can start on time. And these people aren't out yet. So check to make sure, like, is there one class that day, or are there two classes? And is there enough time for turnover? Were you going to say something about that?
No, I was thinking, I was trying to not get into another category, to tell you the thing.
Okay, we'll hang on to it then.
Yeah, location, timing. Sometimes the location may not be in the store that they have it in. They may have it in an alternative location, depending on what.
Yeah, so don't assume.
Yeah.
Make sure, and they should clearly have that listed. If they're going to a satellite location, because, for example, it may be a big class, a big event, and maybe they're going to a different place that can accommodate more people for it, then it should be clearly put there. But don't assume. Make sure you check it out. The onus is really on the customer to check that out, I think. Length of class. Is it a 2-hour class? Is it a 3-hour class? Is it a 4-hour class? This depends on the complexity, or how much you intend to get covered in one session, in a class.
And also, would you be able to complete this complete project within the class, or are you expected to do homework?
And many classes do have homework, things you have to finish up before the next class. And I just hate it when someone shows up at a class and didn't do their homework. And then you hear this, well, I got so busy, I had to do this and I had to do that. Well, it sucks to be you. It really does. Plan for it.
Not only that, people that come back and didn't do their homework and expect to be retaught.
Yeah.
Or skip the class and expect to be retaught.
There is nothing more annoying than somebody sitting next to you who didn't do their homework and is constantly in your ear going, well, how do you do that? When did you? Well, I haven't got that. I'm having a problem with that. You know, your helpfulness only goes so far, and it becomes a disruption to the whole class, and it becomes a disruption to you as well. So check it out. And this, I think, also links back to what we're saying about level of experience. Beginner classes are going to go slower than advanced classes. There's going to be less expected from a beginner than from an advanced person in a class. So if you are at a beginner level and you're taking a class that's marked as intermediate or advanced, rethink that. You may not be able to keep up. And if you can't keep up, you're going to get frustrated. And so you're going to do one of two things. You're just going to give up, pack up your stuff and go home, or you're going to start to monopolize the time of the instructor.
Yeah, and if you go back to the previous thing that we were doing, that I just thought of something, is part of the expectations of the class do you have to pre-prepare something for the class before the class starts?
Yes.
Because sometimes, depending on the project it is, they may ask you to have your fabric cut or something like that. So you may have to do some pre-preparation for a class too.
Now, I have been in classes where it has clearly stated you should have this done and this done and this done before we begin the class. I've had people come into my class and they're going, yeah, I have to pick out my fabric. And so what the instructor does, well, fine, pick out your fabric, but I'm going to start the class. Rightly so. So we're working away in the class, but this person keeps coming in and checking with the instructor. Do you think these will work in this project? And then, they have spent the first half hour of the class out in the store buying their fabric, come back in, and we're a half an hour ahead in it, and they expect everybody to stop what they're doing and the instructor to go and now catch them up. And that's the kind of person I like to have a taser in my back pocket for. Problem finished. So, yeah, do you see I get a little upset about that? Because I've been in that situation on more than one occasion. And there's no excuse for that.
I've had that happen too, so.
Be prepared. Okay, let's talk about the physical setting. We've kind of glanced at this already. First of all, how big's the classroom? This is important. And is each work area that's set aside for someone to do their work, is it going to be big enough for your sewing machine? Is there a large enough area to cut fabric? If you need to cut fabric, is there a large enough space for you to press?
Well, you're making the assumption that you have to bring sewing machine to this class.
Well, yes, I am.
Okay, well,
If
I mean,
it's a
there are
quilting class.
classes
that
supply sewing machines in the class. It's not, we haven't been to any.
No, we've never been to one of
But
those.
I have heard of that.
Okay, well, that's a totally different ball game,
But
isn't it?
in the most cases, when we've taken a class, we've had to take our own equipment there.
Yeah. So, is there enough physical room for that kind of thing for it? Now, having said this about ones that might supply a sewing machine, how are the sewing machines set up?
Mm-hmm.
Are they right like this? That's not enough room.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough room. Or are they like on a table that's 6 feet long, sewing machines at one end, and you got the other area to spread out on?
Okay, like you said, enough space for a sewing machine. Everybody's sewing machine's a different size, usually. Some are smaller, some are bigger. And in one particular case, you took an embroidery class where everybody's machines were quite large.
And different way to set up, because some of the machines had their embroidery unit, like my first embroidery machine, which was at the back of the machine. Other ones had them to the side. We actually had to play Tetris to fit all the machines in because the area was so tiny, and they had 10 people. Forgot to turn that off. And we had 10 people in the class. The room could not accommodate 10 people. We spent a good 20 minutes or more of the class rearranging seating so the machines could all fit, because you had to have clearance because you've got a big bar moving back and forth on them. So that's important. Also, you don't want to be sitting in somebody's lap. You need some personal space around you, because if you're sewing like this, you feel like you're going to touch the person or whatever. No, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get frustrated with that. So that brings up, since you're using sewing machines, unless it's a hand sewing class, and then you don't need any space at all. You just sit in a chair and away you go. You need outlets. Lots and lots of outlets, like power bars, because you may have a couple of things you need to plug in. You got your sewing machine, but what if your sewing machine has a light that's not built in? There may be a plug on that. It's not battery operated. In my case, I usually take a little mini iron with me, so I want to be able to plug in my little mini iron as well. So you need to have adequate outlets, and not outlets that are all running from, like power bars running from a whole series of extension cords all over the room, because that's a danger. And I think any shop owner would realize that and make sure that they have installed in their classroom easily accessible outlets that are tucked away so no one's going to trip over them and that kind of thing. Anything you want to say about power?
Yeah, power sources. Occasionally somebody brings their own iron. Occasionally, I'm not really sure. I've really been to an apparel class that I have to be in present for. I've done it all through Zoom. You might need to have a serger as well as a sewing machine. Yeah. So, I'm not sure.
So yeah, so you got to have electricity, and Now, most of these kind of stores too would be set up with a power supply for the whole store that can handle the voltage of multiple irons on them. But that would depend if a circuit breaker is going to go every time, or do they have, and that's another thing, do they have a pressing station already
or
in there?
more than one.
Yeah, more than one. You have to have more than one. And do they specify that you need not bring your own iron? Or in some cases, they might say, please do not bring your own iron. We can't handle the power,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. We have pressing stations. But yes, there's got to be more than one. It doesn't matter how many people are in the class. There's got to be more than one. Because if you're all standing in line waiting to use the machine, and you know you've got Miss Prissy Presser right there who's going to do all open seams on everything in a quilt, and she's very meticulous about her pressing. Okay, that's why I take my own little iron with me, because where I go for classes, they allow you to do that. And that goes back to what I said about how much space you have. What about the seating? Chairs are important, and I would prefer adjustable chairs because, you got to get all of us are different heights, right? And I'm not a very tall person, so I don't want to be sewing up here. No. At the same time, though, if you're a really tall person, you don't want to be sewing like this. So they need to be adjustable chairs and ones that work. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that chairs are expensive. But if the store is going to offer a good environment for teaching, seating is extremely important. Now, having said that, some people have back problems. They need lumbar support and that. I wouldn't expect a store to provide lumbar supported seating, but you can bring your own little cushion, a lumbar support yourself that straps onto the back of a chair, a portable one, or even a cushion. If you know what the setup is like for seating, that you know that the chairs do not adjust and they're too low for you, bring a cushion along with you to make it a comfortable environment for yourself. But it is something that I am sure a reputable store is going to think about is seating, because seating is very, very important in sewing. We all know that. Adequate lighting. Oh, yes. Now, usually in a store, they have overhead lighting that is pretty good, but you may want additional lighting. I do. My eyes are not good. Now, I'm lucky that my sewing machines that I take have a really good light sources, so I don't need any additional light source. But some people might want to bring those a portable light, because they used to that. Again, we go back to, can you plug it in? Is there a place for it? I have a portable one. We both do. That when we go to retreats, they just collapse down and they don't take up a lot of space, but they give you veritable degrees of brightness on them. And I find those, especially for a retreat, I find that especially useful at a retreat. I don't usually take those to a class. But again, it depends on your eyesight. And it depends on the store. If they've got one bulb in the room that you're doing the class in, I don't think that's adequate. And again, most stores, this is their profession. They understand the importance of lighting. Is the classroom a separate area from the main shopping area of the store? Many shops have a separate classroom area, and that's it. There's nothing in there that people can purchase, hanging up in the walls. There isn't bolts of fabric and things like that, or notions. It's a dedicated space. But I have taken classes in stores where just because the store is not that big to start with, they're trying to utilize every square inch, they have product. And during a class, there are shoppers coming in, and if the classroom is kind of small, they're tripping over you, you're tripping over them, they're talking, there may be a couple of people coming in shopping together, and they're talking about the fabric, and you're trying to listen to the instructor. And it's maddening. You just want to turn around and take a very large club and hit them over the head with it to shut them up. And people and the shoppers themselves are not comfortable with that either. They don't like walking in on a class. So,
sometimes these stores that have the product in the classroom will sometimes offer classes on days that they're normally closed.
Yes, which
And
is good.
that's an advantage if you're in that situation.
Or they'll offer them after closing hours.
Right.
But those are usually then an evening class kind of a
Right.
thing. And, you know, some people don't have a problem with taking an evening class. I
And
have.
some
I've
people
taken
that
them,
are
no problem.
working often like
Yeah.
an evening class because normally during the day they're working. So
Yeah. So this goes back to what we were saying before about checking
Yeah.
out the timing of the class as well. Is the classroom neat, clutterless, clean, organized? You know, if it's got a pressing station or a cutting area, is there stuff piled up on that and you have to move the pile of crap to get at
yeah,
this
do they
iron or
have
that?
facilities for you to throw out scraps or
Yes.
or other things?
Is it like, you know, has it been dusted in a while? Because we know that sewing creates a
no,
lot of dust.
if there's marks on the tables or something like that from a previous class, there's possibility you might get dirt on your clothing. So
Well, yeah, or if the cutting mat is well used, but it's got sticky on it from something somebody was doing some applique or fusing or whatever. Same with the ironing board. You
And
don't
the
want
irons.
that, and the irons. You don't want any of that stuff
On your material.
So, you know, they need to be clean. They need to be neat and organized as well. All of this creates a nice environment, an environment where you want to come in and work. And as a little added bonus, this will not really dampen the experience, but I think it can enhance it. Is there water or coffee or tea or soft drinks or something readily available, either free or something that you pay a nominal price for, or something like that? Because depending on the environment, the time of the year, you might need to hydrate a little bit.
Also, are there bathroom facilities?
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. That's important. If you're going to have the drinks, you need bathroom facilities as well. Okay, anything else about physical setting?
No, that's about it that I can see.
Ideally, the decor in there. The color, it should be, I would say, be painted a bright color, white, off-white or something like that, because that'll reflect light and that'll help. You know, are there maybe displays up of quilts or things? A nice cozy environment. You know, it's your little home away from home kind of a thing that you're working in. Is that absolutely necessary? No, that's just an added bonus if it has something like that. Okay, next section we're going to talk about is availability and cost of supplies for a class. Because you pay a fee for the class, but that fee usually does not include any of the materials you need. Taking a class is not cheap.
It may require you to buy a pattern.
Yes. It may require you to buy a special tool, a special ruler, for example. And of course, there's your fabric as well and your thread. So, are these things readily available in advance? We've already talked about that. And during the class, let's say you're well prepared, you're working away, and suddenly you run out of thread. And it happens. Or you forgot to pack in your supplies your piecing thread if it's a quilt, or your sewing thread if it's a garment. Can you get it right then and there on the spot? Because if you can't, you're kind of screwed, aren't you? Is the cost of the class and supplies reasonable? All right, this is something that is not just on the onus of the shop, but it's on you as the consumer too. If you're paying $60 for a class, what does that $60 include? Now, we've already said it probably doesn't include anything. That's the fee for the instructor. So you probably have a pattern you have to buy. In some cases, the class may include the cost of the pattern as well. I don't think any class ever includes your fabric for obvious reasons. One, if they were going to include the fabric, the price is going to be doubled. And that might be a deterrent for people
Not
to
only that,
take
you
it.
may not like the fabric.
And you may not like the fabric either. But do they supply certain specialty products? Maybe you need a certain type of stabilizer. Do they supply that? Or is it readily available for you to get that? So you need to look at all of those factors. when you're picking a class. A class does not just cost just what they're advertising. It's going to cost you for everything else. And I know this seems obvious, but for beginners, they might think it's a class. Everything is supplied. That's my fee. Because they might think a class costs $10.
And you may need you may need tools if you're a beginner too, that you have
You don't
to
have
get,
yet.
like rulers and cutters and things like that. So those are things that you need to investigate. In garment sewing, you need to make sure you have all your supplies. It's not just fabric, buttons for a shirt if you're making a shirt, specialty buttons, other kinds of products like something called stay tape or interfacing or something like that that is specialized for the particular garment that you're making. So you have to make sure you have all of that stuff available to you.
And that goes back to the description of the class initially. It should be, there should be a sheet or there should be a list on the website or whatever that says this is what you're going to need for the class and this is how much of it you're going to need for the class as well, so that you can invest in those products if you don't already have them.
And you really should pay attention to that, because I've been even in the Zoom classes that I've been in for things where items were distinctly laid out, said you need to get this, you need to get that, and during the class somebody says, oh, I forgot to get that, I don't have that. Right now, if you're in a physical class, somebody might loan you some, but if they have extra. But if you're in a Zoom class, you're on your own. So
that's where I go back to said, are these products readily available during the class that you can go into the store, grab it or whatever and have it. But don't always assume that it is. Make sure you have your stuff in advance.
I had one class that I took and it wasn't really laid out to me right in advance, but part of this class I needed clear plastic that I could sew through, or clear plastic, or clear thick plastic that I could trace through. And I went into the store and I said, oh, so I need some of this plastic. And before the class started, and they said, oh, we don't sell it here. You have to go to this other store. That should have been laid out in the instructions that I had to go.
So the onus was on the shop in that case.
And when I took the class right at the beginning, 3 people walked in and said, well, I couldn't find any of that plastic. Right. And just came in without it the first class.
Yeah. And that causes problems for the instructor.
Yeah, because it was needed in the first class. So
yeah. So there you are. Now, also in cost, are there hidden extras, or is the teacher trying to sell you more items during the class? Now, this is a slippery slope. First of all, are there hidden extras? Hidden extras mean, well, you could use this, but I highly recommend you buy this. Okay, that should have been in the list of things you need. You don't want any surprises like that. Also, though, now I have not really run into this so much, any classes that I've taken, but I do know that there is the potential for certain instructors to make some money on things. A certain brand of ruler, for example, that they might get a kickback on. Sort of like, when you go to affiliate sites on YouTube channels or things like that, they get a little extra money. And I have not had this happen to me in a class that I've taken out here, but if I ever had that happen where somebody was trying to sell some extra products in that, simply because they're trying to make more money off the thing, I'd leave the class. I wouldn't take the class because that's not right.
I have also, for a person that's from an instructor point of view, but I've been in a class where the instructor happens to be the store owner as well, and throughout the class, they're showing you new products all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So, and not really pushing you to buy it, but sort of saying, well, this is a good product, that's a good product, this is a good product. And it was becoming more of a sales tactic.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I don't like. That's not what I'm there for. Thank you for making me aware of these products. However, during the class, this is not appropriate for it. If you would like to take a few minutes at the end of the class or at the very beginning before you get started and just say, and we just had all these new products come in. You might be interested in checking them out later. They're up on a table at the front. You can take a look at them. Because that's just cheesy. Okay. Are discounts offered because you took the class? Now, sometimes as an incentive, because you've signed up and you've paid for a class, anything that you buy during that class that may be related to the class in materials, the store might offer you a 10% or 15% discount on that day. And that's good. I think that's not a bad thing. Sometimes they'll offer you a discount because you're taking the class on something that may not be related. Well, either way, I think that's a win-win for both the store, because they're going to sell more product, and for the customer as well. However, as long as that is something that is not interfering with the flow of the class.
Yeah, the other thing is there are some stores, not any of the ones that we've taken classes at, that have insisted that you have to buy all their fabric from them.
Yes. There was a store in our area that's no longer in business. Maybe this is one reason why. But they had a big sign, or said when they had their advertisement of their classes, you had to buy your fabric at their store. You couldn't bring in your own fabric from someplace else. Well, no, sorry, that turned me off. I never took a class from that store. That turned me right off day one, because no, I don't want it.
We've gone to another store and they said, no, bring whatever fabric you have.
Yeah, whatever you want.
You know, yes, I would like you to purchase fabric from me.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have your own fabric at home. You may have stuff that you want to use yourself. So,
I mean, 9 times out of 10, the customers are going to buy fabric in that store they're taking the class from. But it's a tone. It's a tone thing. It suggests, well, I think it's underhanded to make that
not
statement.
only that, if you have some fabric that you would like to use in the project and they don't sell it in that store,
yeah,
right, it kind of limits what your project's going to look like.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about availability and cost of supplies you want to speak to? Okay, let's jump ahead here to then the quality of teaching, something that I know quite a bit about as well. Okay, first of all, the pace of the class. The rule of thumb has always been to teach to the middle. You're always going to have people that are a little slower. You're going to have people that are a little faster. So when one instructor is handling a group of people, they have to figure out a pace that's going to accommodate the most people. If the class goes too fast and you get lost, you get frustrated, you don't learn. If the pace of the class goes too slow, you get bored with it and you start moving ahead on your own, and that's when there'll be something you may do wrong, or you could have learned how to do better. So the onus is on the instructor. A good instructor knows how to pace a class, an experienced instructor. The first thing you'll always be able to tell about how experienced an instructor is from the pace of the class. And of course, you have to bend a little bit as a person taking the class, as the student as well.
Not only that, the instructor needs to be organized and present the class in an organized fashion.
Yeah. Well,
like it's well planned out way in advance.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing this off the bootstraps. In fact, we were talking to somebody who teaches classes and things like that, and was talking about preparation, about no matter how many times she had taught that class, she always went over everything in advance to make sure she didn't get off track. And I did the same thing. It didn't matter how many times I taught Macbeth, and when I was a high school teacher. Before I started the unit, I would always go through all of my notes, my procedures, the whole bit, because there were a couple of times when I didn't do that and I got myself lost, even though I had taught it many times. So they have to be well organized, because nothing gets you more frustrated in a class than a teacher who doesn't know what they're doing, or they get all lost, or they get things out of order. So clarity of instruction. Are they helpful? Do they make helpful suggestions with explanations and given? Like, do they try to make sure everybody understands before they move on to the next step? Now, there are times, and as I'm talking about this from a teacher's point of view, when it doesn't matter how many diagrams you draw, how many different ways you explain it, how many different languages you use, there will always be one person in the class who doesn't get it. And that person will not leave you alone. So a clever instructor, or a skilled instructor, I should say, is somebody who knows how to handle that situation without disrupting too much the flow of the class. And really, the scope of this video is not to give you instructions for how to be an effective classroom teacher or to be a teacher, but just say a good instructor knows how to handle that, or an experienced instructor. Is individual help offered and readily available? Like when you do have a problem, and people will have a problem, does the instructor say, yeah, I'll get to that, and keep moving on and never come back to you? Or does the instructor find an appropriate moment in order to get over to you and help you out? But a lot of the problems people will have can be alleviated right at the beginning in the way that the instructor sets up the structure of the classroom. So do they say, I'm going to do a demo. I'm going to show you how to do this now. Everybody, my eyes are up here. I'm working in this area. Turn off your sewing machine. Take your foot off that pedal. Put the seam ripper down. And the instructor will wait until everybody is focused on the instructor. And then the instructor demonstrates. Now, that also means the environment too. If it's something small, how does the instructor show you this? Gather the people around the instructor. Divide them up into smaller little groups, a couple of people at a time, and go around while other people are working on one thing, then come around and show them the next step. This is the skill of being a teacher. A good teacher knows how to do this. A bad teacher or an inexperienced teacher won't. And that's going to create a lot of problems in the class as well. Are there samples and demos along the way for each critical step of the project as well? And is the instructor friendly? I have been in classes where the instructor could not give a shit about you. They just say, well, that's the way you do it. I want an explanation. Why do I need to do it that way? If you explain to me why I need to do it that way, then I'll understand. Oh, okay, I see that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Or do they just say, hey, no, do as I tell you. Just do it. Just do it. That's not teaching. That's giving orders. Okay? That kind of thing. And if a teacher sets the mood of a classroom, if a teacher is friendly, is smiling, is confident, is organized, the experience is going to be great for you, and you're going to take more classes from that person. It behooves the instructor to not be like that, because they're cutting their own throat with it. They're creating more problems for themselves. And I think everybody has experienced a teacher in whatever you're learning. Doesn't matter whether it's sewing, quilting, classroom, whatever, school. Everybody knows who the good teachers were in school. Like, think about it, really. Who were the teachers you liked the best? Who were the best instructors? Why? Then say to yourself, why did I like that class? And you can bet it's because they were organized, they knew what they were doing, they were friendly, they helped you out, they kept the class moving. That's a good instructor. Anything you want to add to that about the quality of teaching? No?
No,
Yes.
I guess just that they. My biggest issue is that they aren't doing it off the top of their head.
Yeah.
Type of thing that it's that they have planned a class out.
Yeah.
Because it really shows through quickly when you suddenly realize then they're jumping around all over the place. They don't really have a plan in place.
No. And, just because somebody is teaching a class because they have made this bag or this quilt or this
Or they have a
garment,
knowledge of a machine.
yeah, or something. They've done this 1,000 times. They know what they're doing. Yeah, they know what they're doing. It's how they are able to translate that in so you know what you're doing. And that again is the quality of a good is one of the characteristics of a good quality teacher. Okay, so why should one take a class? I mean, you hear it all the time. I can go on YouTube and learn this. I can take a craftsy course. I can do this, that, the other thing. Why do I need to take a class? Well, if you're the kind of learner that can learn from YouTube videos and things like that, then maybe you don't need to take a class. But there's so much, there's many other benefits to taking a class.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, you can go on to YouTube and learn a lot of techniques and all that other stuff, but there's something about being involved in a live class where somebody might be able to show you something, and then you say, yeah, but, you have a question about what they're showing you, or something like that, where you can get some instantaneous feedback. Not only that, if you're in a class and other people are working around you and doing other projects, sometimes you may see somebody doing something that you've never seen before, and you learn something new that you never even thought of to look for.
Yeah.
You get a new technique or a new idea or a new something from somebody else that's doing something that you had never thought of doing.
Yeah, so, there's a wealth of resources. Don't just look towards the teacher as being the only source of information. You will learn other things from other people because everybody comes with a different skill set when they take a class. And somebody sitting next to you might be able to give you some help as well if you're struggling or whatever too. I've usually found that people in a class are usually very friendly and very willing to help other people because they realize everybody's at a different level. And it's a supportive environment. If it's not, and this goes back to the teacher too, the teacher will make the class a supportive environment where you want to be, where you're not afraid to ask questions of not just the teacher, but other people sitting around you as well. So beginners for sure. I would recommend that anybody starting to garment sew or bag sew or quilt sew or whatever kind of thing, take a class because you're going to learn the proper way to do things. You're not struggling. You're not going to get as frustrated. You'll still have some frustrations.
I mean, sometimes you might have a problem with your machine. You don't know what's wrong with your machine. Other people in the class have had the same problem. They can give you some advice, stuff like that.
Now, what if you're an advanced quilter and you say, well, I know how to do all of this. Why would I take a class? Well, you don't know everything. I always find that I learn something when I take a class, something I did not know. What?
Yeah, you may learn that you don't want to take.
Yeah, well, there's always that. You may learn something I don't want to learn how to do that, or I don't like that. And actually, that's not such a bad thing. I have taken classes where I want to learn how to do Y seams or sew curves because I was afraid that they were things I didn't really want to do, but I took a class and found out, hey, they're not as scary as I thought they were. And yes, I could have gone onto YouTube to learn it too, but I was right there with an instructor who had tips and tricks that I may not learn from another source. And it made the experience of learning something I was afraid of better. But there were some things that I have taken that I've learned that, no, that's not my cup of tea. I don't think I've done it once. I don't really want to do it again.
Like I've taken a couple of quilting classes, and I really halfway through the last quilting class I took, I thought, no, I don't really like quilting.
And I took a serger class where we made a t-shirt kind of a thing, a sweatshirt. And yeah, I learned sort of how to do that, but I learned, no, garment sewing is not for me. I don't want to do it. So you see, there was a benefit. I wouldn't have known that unless I had taken a class. And there's the social aspect too, and that's important,
Yeah, I've met some really nice people in when taking a class, and I'm not just talking a sewing class. I'm talking about other classes I've taken, like stained glass classes and things like that. I've always met other people that I always liked to be with. I also met some people that I didn't like to be with.
Well, yes, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But I always find that the one thing I like about taking classes is meeting other people. You know, I am not a socialite kind of a person. I am actually, believe it or not, I am a bit of an introvert. I can be very happy with myself. But that's not always healthy. That's not good.
Not only that, like sewing or any craft that you're doing, people that are doing this for their own benefit are come from all different walks of life. They'll have all
Yep.
different kinds of jobs. You learn all kinds of things about maybe their jobs they have done, or their viewpoints are different. They're coming from different viewpoints. Their ideas are different. Everything's different. So you learn some interesting things, and it may not even be sewing. It may be
No,
other things.
that's true. Other things that you learn about people too. And the other thing too, there's an advantage too. You can show off. You can show and people when you get to near the end of a class, or when you're at the end of the class and you've got, the quilt top done or the shirt done or whatever, you can hold it up and show it. And other people will all go, that's incredible. That's wonderful. They stroke your ego. Okay. And we all need a little stroking every now and then. So, and if it's a supportive environment, if it has been established as a supportive environment, it doesn't matter if you made a mistake.
And it makes you eager to do some other things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because, it's not going to be perfect the first time anyways. So bad experiences. Well, I got thinking about this, and I've kind of categorized it by the types of people you meet in a class, because really it's people who make the class. I've already talked about the quality of a teacher, how a teacher really is the significant person who makes a class, can make or break a class. But the other individuals in the room can do that too. So you've got the know-it-all. This person walks into the class and goes, oh yeah, looks at this. I've done this 1,000 times. I'm just here to refresh my ideas on it, or I like the pattern. I want to make this. But yeah, I know how to do that. And they look over at yours and go, no, I wouldn't do it that way. What you should do is this. This is how you do it. Well, there's more than one way to do something, usually. And you got to find the way that works best for you. But they're the kind of person that knows it all, and they're just annoying as hell. And you don't want to be sitting near that person. And I've been in classes where after the first class and the know-it-all's been there, people are looking around to see where that person might be sitting, and they'll change their spot so they're not sitting near them. And it gets really bad when everybody's sitting at the one end of the classroom and this other person at the other end. There's a problem at that.
I mean, that doesn't happen in every class, but once in a while you run into it.
But, people have personalities, right? And they're all different. Then you get the constant chatter. Not necessarily asking you for help or giving you inspirational ideas or anything like that. They're constantly in your ear. Oh, this reminds me of the time that I went down there and I saw that, and that was really something. And you're trying to listen to the instructor, and you can't hear the instructor, and you're trying to be polite, and you're trying to sort of ignore them, like give them the hint that you're trying to listen. I don't deal well with those kind of people. I just usually look at them and go and say, I'd love to hear that later on, but right now I'm trying to hear what the instructor's saying. And if they're smart, they go, oh, I'm sorry. But there are some that won't. They don't take a hint.
Yeah, I had one lady in one class I took, and she would not shut up. It was, even when she was told to shut up, she was.
Now, a good instructor is going to know who that person is. They're going to figure them out very quickly. And so they're going to try and take control. When they're instructing, they'll say, okay, everybody, like I said before, put your things down right here and just look up here right now. And if this person continues talking, go, and when you're finished your conversation, I'll begin, kind of a thing. So there's, an experienced teacher knows how to handle that. But sometimes even an experienced teacher can't shut up Chatty Cathy with it.
Yeah, in those classes, it can be a little bit annoying. Then there's people that are constantly late.
Oh, yes.
And always have an excuse. One person said to me, "Oh well, she teaches a fitness class, and she can't." I said, "Why don't you just leave work a little bit early?" I worked in an office; you could do that, right? So, and she goes, "Well, I can't leave early. I teach a fitness class, and I can't be here on time." And I said, "Well, maybe you shouldn't have taken this class if you can't get here
Right.
on time, right?"
You know, they're the kind of person who wants the class times to be changed to accommodate their needs. Doesn't work that way. That's the selfish individual. And you also,
and she was also the one that seemed to want to demand you to start all over again because she was late.
yeah. So as I said before, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on everybody else's part on here. So that's the kind of person that, the unprepared individual, like the ones who didn't get their supplies at the beginning or come in late, as Walter has just said, to the class, or come in and reorganize the room. I was in one class. A woman came in, a student came in late. We had all our stuff set up. We were ready to go. She immediately wanted to sit in a certain spot, and it happened to be my spot.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't ask. She just assumed I would move. Oh, she says, could you move over there because I really need that spot because I need this for that and the other reason. And I looked at her. I've got my sewing machine plugged in. I've got my pressing station set up. I've got all my tools laid out. I'm ready to go here. And you're walking in late. The instructor is about to start and you want to reorganize the room. I was not nice. I said, no.
I had that happen too, and must have been maybe the same person. I don't know. They came in late and wanted to sit in my seat, and I said, "Well, I came here early. I got this seat early. Too bad."
Yeah. My stuff is all set up here. Can you not see that? Those kind of people are ignorant, and that's a polite word for them. And quite frankly, how do you handle a person like that? You don't take any shit. You just say very firmly, like I said to this lady, it says, "I'm sorry, I'm already set up and ready to go. I'm not prepared to move." And she looked at me like, well, like no one's ever said that to me before kind of look. Well, I just did. And okay, I had an advantage. I'm a man. And sometimes, and also I was a teacher and I sort of had fire coming out of my eyes when she was doing that. And apparently that's a look that I used to use on my students too. I've never seen it myself, but other people have, and apparently, well, it burns a hole through them. So that's okay. You have to do you. Okay. But really, no, you were there. You're prepared. You don't have to.
I mean, other things that I've had bad. I've had a situation where there's too many people in the class and not enough space.
Oh yeah, that's a problem for the organizers for the store.
The class is full and they squeeze one more in.
Yeah, and I've had that before. And I get it from a business point of view. But that means then I don't want to take any more classes there again because I can't move. I realize that their facility is fixed, that they can't do much about it, but they can control the number of people in a class. And so, that is something that you have to be aware of. And the other type of person in the class is the monopolizer. This is the person who's very needy or needs to always have the attention of the teacher every step of the way and is constantly on the instructor's back for this and that, for whatever. That person is extremely annoying. Or they keep tapping you on the shoulder or speaking in a loud voice saying, "See what I've done? See what I've done? Look at this. Oh, I've done this. Oh, what have I done here?" They are a needy person and they monopolize everybody else's time.
And part of that is sometimes they're the needy person is someone that talks a lot and doesn't listen to what the instructor is saying, and then they don't get it to do whatever they were asked to do. They do it wrong, and suddenly they need the instructor to show them how to do it over again, and it's all because they weren't listening in the first place.
Now, I mean, as a person participating in the class, you need to give all of these types a little bit of slack, okay? Because you border, then you're on the fine line of stepping over and becoming one of those people as well, okay? Or creating conflict, and that's not conducive to learning, a good learning environment. But at the same time, and again, if the instructor is experienced in the whole bit, they will anticipate these types of people that will be in the class, and they will have a strategy for handling them to a certain degree. I mean, it doesn't matter what strategy you use. Some people you can never ever control. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't take a class, because those type of people might be there. We're talking in the extremes. Usually everybody is supportive,
and sometimes the classes end up being because a problem because the person that's teaching the class hasn't given enough prerequisites to prerequisite instructions to the class before the class starts. And then what I'm specifically talking about is embroidery classes, where part of your embroidery lessons are you need some computer skills.
Yeah.
In order to be able to use the embroidery machine, and you find out half the class is people being taught how to basic computer skills.
Yeah. So again, that goes back to making sure that this description of the class, the onus is on the store people for this, the staff, to list all of that kind of things in the description, and making sure people understand that. So anyways, that's pretty extensive, our point of view. I hope it didn't sound too negative.
Well, I mean, just because we've said these negative things have occurred in the class, there are lots and lots of things that happened in a class that are really positive.
That are great, yeah.
Right? So, you may have some negative experiences in a class, and that happens all the time. But there's like 10% negative experiences, 90% positive experiences in the class.
So it's just to be aware of that, because I know that some people have never taken a class before, an in-person class, or even an online class for that matter.
And actually, I find they're really worthwhile to take, even if you know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's always something you see somebody else doing.
Yeah, well,
that
we've already said that.
Never really thought of doing that way.
Yeah, we've already said that.
Yeah.
So anyways, now we're starting to move into rambling. So we're going to stop it right now. So anyways, I hope this was valuable to you. And I don't know what we're talking about next week, but will be something we'll be talking about.
Figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We always do. And when I say we, I mean me. With it, well, sometimes Walter comes up with a good idea. Whatever. Okay.
Sometimes.
So enough of us. So have a good week.
Yeah. Have a good week.
We'll talk to you soon. And so say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye, Walter.